We are learning Lila Nishmas Midl Marimas Kamen Reuven Hanashamash of Aliyah. We're on Tzadi Hey Amud Beis 95b. And if you recall, last shir we spoke about Rav Shimon and the Rabbanan argue about a perforated pot. The Rabbanan hold that if there's a perforation in a pot, it's considered attached to the ground. Rav Shimon says even if there's a perforation, it's still considered detached from the ground. In other words, as long as it's sitting in a pot, then it's not considered attached to the ground, even if there's a perforation. So we had a question on Rav Shimon's view, clarification. A certain elder asked Rav Zera the following question: Shorish Knega Nekev Mali Amar Rav Shimon. If let's say you have the roots, let's say the root of the plant is right above the hole. So I have a hole of the perforation, right? And the root is right over here, right? So does that change anything, right? Now do we consider it attached to the ground or not? Because the root is right there. It's just like a millimeter away from the ground. The hole is here. The root is right over here, right? So will that change anything? So Ishtik, Rav Zera did not have an answer. He remained silent. He did not say anything at all. Another time he came and found the elder found Rav Zera, saying, that Rav Shimon agrees that if the flower pot has a large enough hole to make it tahar, to make this pot tar. So we'll see what the measurements for that are. But let's say it has a hole the size that would make this pot tar, a certain size. Then Rav Shimon would agree that it's considered attached to the ground, and therefore you'd be chayiv in that case. Okay, so Amar Lei, the elder said, I don't understand what's going on. I asked you regarding the root directly opposite the hole of Lo Midi, and you didn't say anything. If it has a hole big enough to make it tar, is there any question? In other words, the root above the hole should be so much more obvious that that's considered attached to the ground and be chayiv there, and that you didn't know. But then you say, but if the pot has a hole big enough to make it tahar, which is less considered attached to the ground, it would seem. There you're confident that it's considered attached to the ground. The elder didn't appreciate this. The elder didn't understand this. So Abai comes and explains. Amar Abai, Yitmar lahad Rav Zera. If Rav Zera really did say this, Hachi Hudatmar, this is what he said. He agrees that if the perforation was below the level of Ravias, that's when he says he's considered attached to the ground. So what does that mean? What that means is as follows. Let's say here's my flower pot, and let's say I have the perforation, the hole, that's going to be somewhere lower than here. So it can no longer hold a revius. If it can no longer hold a revius, it's no longer considered a kli. Once it's no longer considered a kli, then Rav Shimon says, agreed. It's not meaning from a technical, botanical perspective, maybe you're right. The seed, the root above the hole, that might be considered more like it's attached to the ground. But at the end of the day, it's still in a pot. Whereas when you have this type of utensil and there's a hole lower than Revius, it's no longer, it's as if the pot's not there. That's why it becomes tahar. If the pot's not there, then if someone agrees, then we consider it attached to the ground. Therefore, if you pluck from such a pot, you're going to be chayav because it's attached to the ground. Okay, fine. Amar Rava. Rava says chamish minus b'chli cheres, 5 different measurements regarding the perforations in an earthenware vessel. Okay, we're going to learn a little bit about earthenware vessels and holes. Okay, nikev kamotzi mashkef. Let's say the hole was large enough that it lets liquid out. Okay, so if you have a small tiny hole, it's going to start seeping liquid out because there's liquid in it, putting pressure. Liquid's going to fall out of it. Tar militame gistra. It's unfit to become tummy as a shard. Okay, but we still consider it a utensil, so it's not going to. If we use this as a shard, okay, meaning if this was a piece of earthenware that was being used as a shard to carry liquid, but it's not able to hold liquid because it has a hole and liquid comes out of that shard because of the hole, so it's not functional as a shard anymore. So if that was really its only function, meaning it was just a shard, it's going to be tar. It won't be able to come tame. However, there's another halacha that you need an earthenware vessel for, and that is to carry mechatas, the waters of a paraduma, and it's still considered a kli for that. Okay, nikev kechonis mashka. However, if the hole is large enough, then not only does it allow liquid to come out, but if liquid is coming from the outside, it would go in. Taram lekadish bo mechatas. Then it's invalid for sanctifying. Then it's no longer good for a mechatas type of utensil. But dain klihu lehachshabos ram. But still utensil. Okay, to be considered that the seeds growing in it are going to be susceptible to tumah. In other words, even though there's a hole, it's still considered detached from the ground because it's not such a big hole. Okay, nikev kisharish katzan, if the perforation was the size of a small root, tahar milahachshabos ram. Then, according to Rabbanan, if the hole was the size of a root, then the Rabbanan would agree, right? The Rabbanan say if there's a perforation, then if there's a perforation that's still that size, the size of a small root, it's still not big enough, and it's going to, and therefore it's not going to be. Sorry, if the hole is the hole is that small, right? If it's perforated the size of a small root, it's unfit to render seeds growing and acceptable to tuma because it's still too small. Okay, sorry, give me a second, right? Right, because it's low. Okay, let me say this again. One more time, sorry. If it's perforated the size of a small root, then it's large enough. There we go. It's large enough. This is the right shot. If it has a big enough hole, meaning if it's separate, if it's not perforated at all, then it's considered detached from the ground, and therefore it's going to become, now any seeds growing in it are going to become susceptible to tuma. But if it's large enough, it's perforated the size of a small root, then it's considered attached to the ground, and now the seeds that are growing in it are not going to be kosher, not susceptible to tuma because we consider it attached to the ground, right? So as long as it's the size of a small root, then we're going to consider it attached to the ground, and therefore the seeds growing in it will not become susceptible to tuma. A utensil that size, if it's able to carry olives, let's say, then it's still considered a utensil, and it'll still be makabel tuma, even though it has a hole in it. However, if it was perforated large enough that olives will fall out of it, tarm makabel bozesim. So if the utensil was set up to be an olive holder, an olive cup, then the kli is no longer going to become makabel, is no longer going to be makabel tuma because it's no longer functional. When a utensil loses its functionality, then it's not susceptible to tuma. But if it was a utensil that was a large utensil that was meant for carrying pomegranates, then the fact that it has a hole the size of an olive doesn't make a difference. It's still going to be tummy. If you have a utensil that has holes in it that pomegranates will fall out of it, it will not become susceptible to them at all because that is a non-functional utensil. But if it's surrounded by a sealed cover, until the majority of the utensil is broken off. So what is that about? What that is if you have a utensil, let's say there's someone who passes away in a home, then everything inside the house becomes tamei. However, the Torah tells us that if it has a sealed cover, if a utensil has a sealed cover, then such a utensil is going to be tahar. It's not going to become tamei because of tumas ohel, because of the tuma of a mace, of a corpse within the same place. Okay, so there, if it was surrounded by a sealed cover, if the top has a sealed cover, then it's going to save it from becoming tamei, unless the majority of the utensil is broken off. The majority of the utensil is broken off, even if it still has a cover, it's not. It doesn't protect it because we no longer see it as utensil, right? So again, if it has a seal on it, even though from a utensil perspective it's not so functional, it's still going to be protected from the cover. But if the majority of the utensil is broken off, then it no longer becomes tamei. Amar Ravasi, Shemati kli cher she'iru kamotzi rimon. I heard concerning an earthenware utensil that the measurement is enough to allow a pomegranate out. So on the one hand, we just learned that the measurement to make it no longer a utensil when it's covered is the majority of the utensil. And now we're saying, so Amarei Rava. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. It's been a day. Okay, so Amar Ravasi says, Shamati kli cheresh shiur kamotzi rimon. I've heard that an earthenware vessel, the measurement is large enough to let a pomegranate through. Amalei Rava, and Rava replies, Shemalo Shematel B'mokev Tzamid Psil. Perhaps this idea of the pomegranate was said specifically by the halacha of it being surrounded by a cover. Okay, now the Gemara asks, so basically Rava says that this halacha of an earthenware vessel and a pomegranate is specifically regarding the halacha of a tumas ohel, and it's specifically when it has a cover. When it has a cover, then it's going to be susceptible. When it has a cover and it has and the hole is the size of a pomegranate, then it's going to become tamei because the cover does not help. Okay, if it's smaller than a pomegranate, then it's still considered a utensil, and the cover is still going to help. Ask the Gemara, Amar Mukaf Tamei Psil Achi Pasech Ruvo. So now we have a contradiction. On the one hand, so again, let's just review this halacha. So I'm not sure if I was clear enough. So if a person dies in a house, okay, a person dies in this room, okay, then everything in this room is going to become tamei. Okay, but let's say I have this one utensil over here. Here it is. 1 second. This plastic bowl over here, well, we'll pretend it's earthenware, okay, and it's covered with a seal. Let's pretend this bag is a seal, okay. This is not the best drawings over here. Ruspansky would not be proud. Okay, so it's covered by a proper seal. Then it's not going to become tamei because the Torah says if you have a kli, if you have a utensil that's covered with something with a seal, then it's not going to become tamei, and this bag is sealing this utensil. However, so we first had a halacha that said if the majority of this utensil is broken, okay, I'm not going to break it, but if the majority of this utensil is broken, even if it's covered by a seal, it's not a utensil, and therefore it's going to become tamei. But if less than the majority is broken, then even though it's not really a functional utensil, but it's still considered a utensil, and therefore this cover will protect it. Okay. Now we have a problem because we have a contradiction. One place Rava says that the majority of this utensil has to be broken in order for it to no longer be susceptible, no longer be a kli, and therefore become tamei in this scenario. And then we have another place where he says the whole has to be the size of a pomegranate. Okay, but he doesn't say majority. So which one is it? Is it majority or is it a pomegranate? Which is the type of hole that makes it no longer utensil, which will make it now tamei in a house with a corpse? Okay, Lokasha, no problem. Ha baravari. When he said that the majority of the utensil has to be broken in order for it to no longer become a utensil, that's regarding a large earthenware utensil. When did he say the size has to be a pomegranate? When it's a small earthenware utensil. So basically, it's talking about two different cases, and therefore there's no contradiction. Bottom line is that again, when a utensil has a cover in a home where a corpse is, then it's going to not become tamei. However, if it's no longer considered a utensil because the size of the hole, whether it's majority or whether it's pomegranate size, if it's no longer considered a utensil, then it will become tamei because the Torah only says a utensil which has a cover in that home will not become tamei, but when the hole is big enough, it's not considered a utensil. Have a wonderful day.